Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We have seen that the Indian judiciary is becoming more and more intrusive, obtrusive, and hypocritical. Law is supposed to be equal for everyone, and the judiciary is supposed to be custodian of law and the constitution. The Constitution of India says that all citizens are equal before law. And Indian judiciary is making some citizens better than the other citizens, especially itself. They say charity begins at home. And there can be no better example of this than the most recent indirect bribery, shall I call it? Or shall I call it favoritism? With the government of Delhi. Delhi has reserved a five-star hotel for the exclusive use of the judiciary. The judges and their families would stay in the hotel, get meals, get all the perks of five-star hotel free of cost for COVID treatment and or stay. Is this bribery by the government to ensure that the Delhi High Court does not go the way Tamil Nadu High Court has done when it said that the election commission should be prosecuted for murder? Now I'm coming to that as well, though that is a stupid judgment by itself. No, but making this allocation of a five-star hotel with all the benefits of a five-star facility, not only for the judges, but also for the families of the judges. What does it show? That the lives of the family members and the judges are more important than the average Indian? They are not. As a matter of fact, nobody's life is much more important than the life of an ordinary person. Each life is important. And to put a premium on one life at the cost of another life is ridiculous. Now, you would be amused that a person sentenced for life for murder got COVID. Naturally, as a prisoner, he is to be treated. Normally, he should have been treated in the jail hospital, but the government decided that considering that he has been an MP, shifted him to a Delhi hospital, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Hospital, nearest to Tihaji. And no, the High Court orders no, he should be given special treatment. Another prisoner who is already in a medical college hospital in Mathura, a journalist, is ordered to be admitted either in AIIMS or in any of the big Delhi hospitals. Why, what's wrong with the people, hundreds and thousands of people who are being admitted in the hospitals? And medical college hospital is a major hospital always, anywhere. But then that journalist couple is supposed to be brought to Delhi, admitted into hospital, and when he gets better, transported back to Mathura. There's no logic for these decisions. The only logic is sheer catering to political correctness, sheer succumbing to the lure of populism and being called honest, full of integrity, full of concern, while in reality it shows absolute disregard for the average Indian. Then, not content with that, you remember I criticized Kumbh. I did. And there were people who said, no, Kumbh should not be criticized because it's a religious festival. But then this was responsible for a large number of COVID cases and has to be criticized. But lo comes another High Court and orders that Kumbh should have been banned. And the same High Court and the same Supreme Court had ordered that all the Tablighi people who had been prosecuted by the government should be freed because that was their religion and they are not responsible for spreading. So on the one side, they free one community members for not spreading, though they were assembling in small rooms. And here in open air, if I agree, it was a huge crowd. It must not have been there. It should have been back. But then isn't sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander? What was right for Tablighi is not right for Kumbh. Imagination staggers. Honestly, what are the courts trying to convey? That some individuals, especially criminals like Shahabudi, are couple are better than an average Indian, an average human being? Is one community's religious assembly to be preferred to the religious assembly of another community? Is it not showing the seeds of divisiveness? Is it not showing that the courts are either not impartial or are trying to create an aura of being honest, especially for the minorities? The whole thing stinks, absolute stinks. And then comes a judgment by the Madras High Court. They said that the election commission should be prosecuted for murder. Their fault. It did not ban the rallies. It did permit people to carry on their election duties and election work. I fully agree that at this time there should have been no elections. Government could easily have passed, or the election commission could have passed. Any ordinance could have been issued that the lives of all the legislative assemblies are extended by a period of 1 year. Hammers would not have followed. Anyway, I'm concerned today with the judiciary system. Now, blaming EC is perfectly justified where the blame is due. But to call them as murderers, isn't the Supreme Court exceeding its limits and the High Court as well? Imagine EC is an independent institute, and this institution has the same powers as the courts have, the High Court and the Supreme Court have. As a matter of fact, when the Constitution was being framed, it was mentioned that the Chief Election Commissioner should be of the same level in hierarchy as the Chief Justice of India. And the election commissioners should be equivalent to the Supreme Court judges. Then in protocol they said no, let them be not be equal to them, but they are being independent, like Controller and Auditor General of India. They will not be answerable to anybody for their work. Even the President of India cannot, they can be impeached. If they've done something wrong, they can be impeached by the parliament, as the judges of the Supreme Court can be. But they are not liable to explain their actions unless they violate the constitution and law. Now, holding the election is a prime concern of the Election Commission. Blaming them and charging them for murder is absolutely the decision or a statement uncalled for, unwarranted, undesirable. The same court could easily have said at that time that the Election Commission is failing had they not held the elections. So, doomed if you do, doomed if you don't do. Damned if you do, damned if you don't do. But the whole thing, whether it is Shahabuddin's case, when special orders are issued, whether it's Kappan's case, when he's ordered to be brought from Mathura to Delhi, to Ames, when people in Delhi are suffering, and then thus creating a class of the privileged, and then the blaming election commission. Now, why is it happening? That's more important. It is happening is condemnable. It is happening is absolutely fit to be censored. But the question is why? A. This shows the appetite of the judicial system to be paramount. In a democratic setup, where the three organs of the government, executive, judiciary, and legislature are independent in their own field, there are always cross checks and cross balances. And judiciary is supposed to be a balancing factor, to be a watchdog for the rights and the law. But here the judiciary is spreading in tentacles in the areas which are none of its concern. A. It directs, for example, in Delhi, that the judicial officers shall be the nodal officers. The judicial officers, the magistrates and the judges are supposed to do the cases, not to supervise the work, day-to-day work. That's the job of the executive. This order by itself is absolutely idiotic. That means they will not be tending the courts because they are the nodal officers to see the COVID things are being done in proper manner or not. You mean to say, suppose there's a chief secretary, there are secretaries, there are directors, so there'll be a superpower over them. And then imagine it is sub-judge who is appointed in the lower judiciary is answerable to the law secretary. He is answerable to the session judge as well as to the law secretary. But as a nodal officer, he is above the law secretary. What a contradiction. And then all the cases that they are to hear, more than 10 crore cases are pending in the courts today. I'm talking only of the high courts, not the lower courts. So are you not going to add to that? Are you not going to add to the lawlessness? This is misgovernance. Judicial officers are not meant to be nodal officers. So the judges in the High Court and the Supreme Court are in fact, I feel, are being politically oriented. They think that they'll create an image for themselves, and after having retired, they'll become the political leaders. There is an innate desire in them to have more power. As judges, they have all the perks, all the benefits, more benefits than anybody else has. But this after retirement, we are not going to have this. And the judges are not supposed to have a social life. And here they have political ambitions, I can tell you. The appointment of Justice Gogoi as as a member of the Rajya Sabha itself is an indicator, and it is not prompting the judges to behave in that manner. And that's why you remember 3 years back there was a press conference by the judges of Supreme Court, which has never taken place. So there's an innate desire for them to enter into arena of governance, executive. So they want to combine the two, and they are creating a background and a take-off place so that their ambitions can take off. Secondly, they want to prove themselves as supra-judiciary, supra-executive, and supra-legislative, which is not done. It's not conducive to industry. And then it's not conducive to good governance. When the executive or the chief executives are supposed to feel that they are under the thumb of the judicial officers, their performance would suffer. Then it's taking their attention away from their day-to-day work. Would they satisfy the judicial dictates or would they do their own work? Let's be very clear, and this is the responsibility of the Prime Minister and the President. Let them give a clear call to the courts. Your work is A, to see that the laws are implemented. And if the executive is doing something wrong, pull it up. No question of that. Number two, to see that no unconstitutional action takes place. But you are nobody, repeat, nobody to interfere in day-to-day governance. That is cutting at the roots of the governance and is promoting bad governance. It is and then it's bringing a bad name to the executive. People will rush to the Supreme Court and the High Court for anything. They have a right to do it. But to bring executive into disrepute for the political ambitions of some judges. And as a matter of fact, I feel now the time has come that the Supreme Court and the High Courts of India need an ombudsman. Let an institution be created of 3 former Supreme Court judges who will look into such judgments and issue advisories that look here, you're crossing the Lakshman Rekha, the boundaries, thus far and no further. Judiciary, when it becomes ambitious, is a disaster for any country because they are not trained to be administrators, not trained to be executives. Their job is to interpret, to deliberate, to think. It's not to act. There might be some excuse saying that their social conscience is troubling them. But when you're governing, you keep your social conscience in view. When you're interpreting law, your social conscience shouldn't trouble you. As might have, that's what the law is. Your eyes are covered with a black cloth, so you cannot be prejudiced by factors other than the law points. They say Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. But here, Caesar's wife, that's the judiciary, is clearly obtrusive and it's intrusive, both. It is selfish and most important, sadly, it is hypocritical. The time has come for the judiciary to have an introspection in its activities and for the executive and the president and the prime minister especially to see that these ambitions of the judiciary are checked forthwith. Otherwise, India is in for a political collapse, not because of politicians, but because of politically motivated, hypocritical judges. It's just like, the Baba, the godman of India. some of whom have been jailed. They have raped women. These judges are raping the institution. And then all the time posing as saints. Time has come to rip the mask off and tell judiciary, behave like judges. Do not have ambitions of politics or executive. Because then that is something which is unacceptable. They have a prestigious position in society and they are selling that position by their absolutely populist decisions. These are just populist measures, they have no meaning. I remember something which is set there for interest and should be a guideline to Modi and COVID. The Supreme Court had issued an order at the time of Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson's response was, well, Supreme Court has issued an order. Let it implement it also. Because it is up to the executive to implement it. And the Supreme Court was helpless. The same should be said to these courts when they overstep their limits. Okay? You go ahead and implement it. We are not going to do it. And a warning should be given to them that if you continue this, you will be compelled to take action. After executive is the final decisive maker and main sovereign is parliament, let's be clear. But the executive is the main party in the parliament. So let them take a decision and clip the wings of the judiciary which are trying to soar ambitiously into those spaces which are not theirs. And the sooner the Prime Minister and the President take action, the better it would be for the country. Thank you.